Part 1. The Call. 6 weeks after my sister Sarah died, I was still living in slow motion. Grief does that to you. It turns time into something thick and heavy, like walking through water. Every morning felt the same, coffee going cold in my hand, her name sitting unsent in my phone, the sound of her laugh still echoing in places it shouldn't. Sarah was younger than me. She was careful, responsible. That's why the call I received on a quiet Tuesday afternoon didn't make sense. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. David. A calm, professional voice asked when I answered. This is Michael Reeves. I'm your sister's attorney. My stomach tightened. I didn't know Sarah had a lawyer, I said. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Not awkward, measured. She did, he replied. And she specifically asked that I contact you. Exactly 6 weeks after her passing. That stopped me cold. Why 6 weeks? I asked. She said you wouldn't be ready before that, he said quietly. But that by now, you'd be listening. I sat down without realizing it. Mr. Reeves, I said, my voice suddenly dry. What is this about? Another pause. Your sister left something for you, he said. Not just property. Not just money. I closed my eyes. What did she leave me? He took a breath. She left instructions, he said. And a condition. My heart started pounding. A condition for what? For the truth, he said. And for something she believed would protect you. Once she was gone. The room felt smaller. I need you to come to my office, he continued. In person. Alone. Is this about the accident? I asked. Because the police said it was. This isn't about what the police concluded, he interrupted gently. It's about what Sarah knew. The line went silent for a moment. Before I could ask another question, he added one last sentence that made my blood run cold. She was afraid someone would contact you before I did. I stared at my phone long after the call ended, one thought looping through my mind. What could my sister have discovered? And why would she wait until after her death to tell me? Next in Part 2, David arrives at the lawyer's office and is shown a sealed envelope. Sarah ordered never to be opened unless one specific condition was met. A condition that suggests her death may not have been an accident at all. Part 2. The envelope she forbade them to open. The law office was quieter than it had any right to be. No ringing phones. No murmuring voices behind doors. Just the faint ticking of a clock. On the wall and the sound of my own. Breathing as I sat across from Michael Reeves. He was older than I expected. Late 50s, silver hair. Sharp eyes that looked like they'd seen too much to be easily shaken. In front of him sat a single manila envelope. Thick. Sealed. Untouched. That, he said, resting his hand lightly on it, is the reason you're here. I leaned forward. What is it? Before I answer that, he replied, I need to ask you something your sister made me promise to ask first. My fingers curled into my palm. Did anyone contact you after Sarah's death? He asked. Asking questions about her, her finances, her work, or you? I hesitated. There it was. Yes, I said slowly. A man came by my house. Said he worked for the insurance company. Asked whether Sarah ever mentioned feeling unsafe. Or worried. Reeves' jaw tightened. And? He asked. I told him no, I said. Because she didn't. Not to me. Reeves nodded once, as if confirming something he already suspected. Good, he said. Then we can proceed. He slid the envelope closer to me but didn't let go. This envelope, he began, was prepared by your sister 3 months before her death. She instructed me, in writing and in front of 2 witnesses, that it was never to be opened unless 2 things happened. What things? I asked. 1, he said, that she died unexpectedly, and 2, that you came here in person, alone, after 6 weeks had passed. My throat tightened. She planned for this. I asked. She prepared for it, he corrected gently. There's a difference. He finally released the envelope. I didn't open it yet. What's inside? I asked. Reeves leaned back in his chair. A letter written to you, he said. A flash drive. And a notarized statement requesting an independent review of her death. 1. That bypasses local authorities. I stared at him. She didn't trust the police. She trusted patterns, he said. And Sarah believed something about the crash didn't fit. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. The first thing I pulled out was the letter. My sister's handwriting hit me harder than I expected. Neat. Familiar. Alive. David, if you're reading this, then I was right to be afraid, and I'm sorry you're learning this way. My chest ached. Please don't panic. Please don't confront anyone. And above all, please don't assume this was an accident. I looked up at Reeves. She thought she was going to die, I whispered. She thought she might, he said. I kept reading. There are things I couldn't tell you while I was alive. Not because I didn't trust you, but because I didn't want you pulled into something dangerous. My heart started racing. Everything you need is on the drive. If anything happens to me, take it to the person I name on the last page. Do not show it to the police first. I stopped reading. Why not the police? I asked. Reeves' expression darkened. Because, he said carefully, the person Sarah believed was responsible had friends in very convenient places. A chill ran through me. I picked up the flash drive. What's on it? I asked. Records, he said. Emails. Audio files. And one video Sarah recorded 2 days before she died. I swallowed. And who does she want me to give this to? Reeves hesitated. That, he said, is where things get complicated. He slid another document toward me. At the bottom of the letter, he continued, your sister names someone you haven't spoken to in years. I flipped to the last page. One name stared back at me. A name I hadn't said out loud since college. A name tied to a past I thought I'd buried. I looked up slowly. You're telling me, I said, my voice barely steady, that Sarah trusted him more than anyone else. Reeves met my eyes. She trusted him because, he said, he already knew the truth. Next in part 3, David reconnects with the one person Sarah secretly trusted and learns that the night of the crash wasn't the beginning of the danger. It was the end of a long, hidden trail. Part 3, the name I never expected. I stared at the paper until the letters blurred. I hadn't spoken that name in over 15 years. Not since the night everything fell apart. Is this a mistake? I asked quietly. Reeves shook his head. Your sister was very precise. She revised this document twice. Each time, the name stayed. I leaned back in the chair, memories flooding in uninvited. College dorm hallways. Late-night arguments. A friendship burned to ash by secrets and pride. No, I said, more to myself than to him. She wouldn't choose him unless she had a reason. Reeves watched me carefully. Do you want to tell me who he is to you? I exhaled slowly. He was my best friend, I said. And then he wasn't. Reeves didn't press. He simply nodded, as if he'd expected that answer. She contacted him a year ago, he said. At first anonymously, then directly. My head snapped up. She talked to him? About what? Reeves folded his hands. About her work. That made my stomach twist. Sarah had been a senior analyst for a private transportation safety firm. On paper, her job was dull: risk assessments, compliance reviews, accident probability models. In reality, she followed money. And when money moved in strange ways, people tended to get hurt. What did she find? I asked. She believed, Reeves said carefully, that her crash wasn't random, that it was connected to a report she was preparing, one that never got submitted. I thought of the unfinished email draft found on her laptop, the one the police dismissed as irrelevant. Who was the report about? I asked. Reeves didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city. A company, he said finally. One that owns freight fleets, construction vehicles, and experimental transport technology. That made my skin crawl. And the man she trusted. I asked, what does he have to do with them? Reeves turned back to me. He used to work for them, he said, until he quit abruptly after uncovering internal fraud. The room felt smaller. He tried to expose them, Reeves continued. They buried it, and they buried his career along with it. Suddenly, everything clicked. That night, the argument, the accusation. I'd thought he was paranoid. You're telling me, I said slowly, that Sarah found the same thing he did. Yes. And she thought they killed her. She thought, Reeves said, that someone made sure she wouldn't finish her report. I picked up the flash drive again, my thumb brushing over its smooth surface. What happens if I give this to him? I asked. Reeves' expression hardened. Then the people your sister feared will realize she wasn't as isolated as they thought. Silence settled between us. And if I don't? I asked. Reeves met my gaze. Then her death stays an accident on paper, and whatever she uncovered stays buried. I closed my eyes. I thought of Sarah's laugh, her stubbornness, the way she always said, truth has weight. David, even when no one wants to carry it. I stood. Where is he? I asked. Reeves slid a business card across the desk. A name, a city, a private number. He doesn't trust easily anymore, Reeves said. If you call, don't mention Sarah at first. Why not? Because, he replied, the last time someone said her name to him, he went off the grid for 6 months. That didn't reassure me. I slipped the flash drive into my jacket pocket, then folded the letter carefully. What about the insurance company? I asked. The man who came to my house. Reeves' jaw tightened. "He doesn't work for them," he said. "And I suggest you don't answer your phone tonight." I paused at the door. "Mr. Reeves," I said, "do you think Sarah knew she was going to die?" Reeves didn't hesitate. "I think," he said softly, "she knew she was getting close enough to the truth that someone might decide she couldn't be allowed to live with it." I stepped out into the cold afternoon air, my mind spinning. I didn't drive home. Instead, I pulled over 3 blocks away, sat in my car, and stared at the business card. After 15 years of silence, I pressed call. It rang twice. Then a voice I hadn't heard since my 20s answered. "David." I swallowed. "Yeah," I said. "It's me." There was a long pause. Then he spoke, his voice low and sharp. "If you're calling," he said, "then she's gone. And they're already watching you." Next in Part 4, The Old Friend reveals what Sarah uncovered and why her death was only one piece of a much larger, far more dangerous puzzle. Part 4, What She Was Never Meant to Finish. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, heart pounding, half expecting it to ring again immediately. It didn't. I drove without a destination, letting muscle memory take over, until the city thinned and warehouses replaced cafes. I parked under a flickering streetlight and waited. 5 minutes later, headlights swept across my windshield. A dark sedan pulled in beside me. The driver didn't get out right away. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. Finally, the door opened. He looked older, thinner. His hair, once jet black, now threaded with grey. But his eyes were the same, sharp, constantly measuring distance and threat. He slid into the passenger seat without asking. "Turn the engine off," he said. I did. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he looked at me fully. "She knew you'd come," he said. My throat tightened. "You talked to her?" "Yes." "How long?" "Long enough to realize she was standing exactly where I stood, right before my life imploded." I pulled the flash drive from my pocket. His eyes dropped to it, then back to mine. "You didn't bring that to my place," he said quietly. "Good. They'd already be watching." "Who?" I asked. He gave a short, humorless laugh. "You still ask that question like there's a simple answer." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded map, spreading it across his lap. Red circles. Dates. Vehicle identification numbers. "This," he said, tapping the paper, "is every accident tied to Helios Transit in the last 8 years." The name sent a chill through me. Sarah had mentioned Helios once, in passing. Said they were untouchable. Too many government contracts. Too many friends in the right places. "They don't just move cargo," he continued. "They move liability. When something goes wrong, it disappears." "And Sarah?" I asked. "She found the pattern," he said. "Same routes. Same subcontractors. Same insurance shell companies." I swallowed. "So her crash wasn't random," he finished. "And it wasn't meant to look clean. It was meant to look ordinary." I stared out the windshield, suddenly nauseous. "She was scared," I said. I could hear it in her voice those last weeks. He nodded. "She knew she was close. That's why she split the evidence." "Split?" He looked at me then, really looked. "She gave me half," he said. And she left the other half to you. My pulse spiked. What half? He reached into his pocket and pulled out another flash drive. Smaller, older, data trails, he said. Payments, shell accounts, names. Names of who? Executives, fixers, 2 federal consultants. My stomach dropped. You're telling me, I said slowly, that between these 2 drives, we can prove not just negligence, he said, but intent. A horn blared in the distance. Somewhere nearby, a door slammed. I suddenly felt exposed. They'll come after you, I said. After me. They already are, he replied. The question is whether we let them keep winning. I thought of the man who'd come to my house. The way he'd smiled too easily. I was warned not to answer my phone tonight, I said. His jaw tightened. Good advice. He leaned closer. David, he said, your sister didn't just want justice. She wanted insurance. Insurance for what? For the truth to survive even if she didn't. I closed my eyes. What do we do? I asked. He didn't hesitate. We go public, he said. But not yet. When? When we control the timing, he replied. And when they least expect it. He handed me the second flash drive. Tomorrow, he continued, you're going to get a call. They'll want to clarify details about Sarah's estate. How do you know? Because they always do, he said. And because I already got mine. I looked at him sharply. They contacted you. Yesterday. My heart sank. They asked if I'd spoken to her recently, he said. I told them the truth. What truth? That I hadn't, he said. Because I didn't, until now. He opened the car door. Don't go home tonight, he said. And don't trust anyone who tells you this is about paperwork. He paused. Sarah trusted you with her final move, he added. That means you're in this whether you like it or not. He stepped out and disappeared into the shadows. I sat there long after, staring at the 2 flash drives resting in my palm. One from my sister. One from the man I once turned my back on. And suddenly, I understood the weight of what Sarah had done. She hadn't just left me an inheritance. She'd left me a choice. Next in part 5, the phone call arrives, and the people behind. Helios make a mistake that reveals just how desperate they've become. Part 5, the call they thought I'd answer wrong. The call came at 9:07 a.m. Right on time. I was sitting in a cheap roadside cafe 3 towns over, nursing a burnt cup of coffee I hadn't tasted once. The phone buzzed on the table, lighting up with a number I didn't recognize, but somehow already knew. I didn't answer immediately. That was my first mistake in their eyes. When I finally picked up, the voice was smooth, polite, almost friendly. David Collins. The man asked, Yes. This is Andrew Mills, he said. I'm calling on behalf of Helios Transit's legal department. We just want to clarify a few things regarding your sister's estate. Estate. They loved that word. Made everything sound clean. I'm not handling her estate, I replied calmly. Her attorney is. A pause. Yes, of course, Mills said. We are simply reaching out to family members to ensure there were no misunderstandings following the accident. Accident. I stared at the flash drive beside my coffee cup. What kind of misunderstandings? I asked. Well, he said lightly, sometimes grief can cause people to misinterpret events. We've had situations where families believed there was wrongdoing when there wasn't. I almost laughed. I see, I said. And how does Helios know what my family believes? Another pause. Shorter this time. We like to be proactive, he replied. There it was. The tell. You don't need to worry, Mills continued. If there's any material your sister may have left behind, documents, files, would be happy to review them and help put your mind at ease. My grip tightened. You want me to hand over her things, I said. We want to help, he corrected. And we are prepared to compensate you for your time. Compensate. There it was again. I leaned back in the booth. Let me ask you something, I said casually. Why would Helios need my help unless there was something to hide? Silence. Longer this time. Then his tone shifted, not angry, but colder. Mr. Collins, he said, this conversation is being recorded. So is mine, I replied. That did it. His breath caught, just slightly. That won't be necessary, he said quickly. We are simply offering support. I don't need it, I said. And neither did my sister. The line went dead. The mistake they didn't realize they'd made. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. A text message. Unknown. We can make this easy. Please call. I didn't. Instead, I forwarded the number to my former friend. His response came instantly. They are rushing. That means something leaked. A chill ran through me. Me. What kind of leak? Him. The kind that makes executives panic. I stared out the cafe window as trucks roared past on the highway. What now? I typed. 3 dots appeared. Then his message came through. We accelerate. The package that changed everything. That afternoon, a courier arrived at my motel. Not my name. My sister's. Inside was a thin folder. No return address. Just one sticky note attached. You should read this before you trust anyone else. My hand shook as I opened it. Printed emails. Internal memos. A transfer approval dated 2 days before Sarah's death. At the bottom of the final page was a signature I recognized. Not Helios. The insurance company. The same one whose representative had come to my house. My chest tightened. They hadn't just been watching. They'd been coordinating. And now, someone inside their circle was scared enough to break ranks. I looked at the clock. 5:42 p.m. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Reeves. We have a problem. Someone filed an emergency motion to seize your sister's digital assets. I closed my eyes. They were done pretending. They weren't trying to buy silence anymore. They were trying to erase it. Next in Part 6. A race against time begins as David and his ally must release the truth before the courts and Helios can bury it forever. Part 6. The race before they erased her. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't, but because I knew sleep was exactly what they were counting on. By morning, Helios had made its move official. Reeves called at 6:12 a.m. They filed an emergency petition, he said, claiming Sarah's files contained proprietary corporate material and pose a national infrastructure risk. That's insane, I said. It's strategic, he replied. If the judge grants it, everything gets sealed. No press. No review. No appeal. How long do we have? A few hours, he said. Maybe less. I hung up and immediately called my former friend. They're going legal, I said. Fast. I know, he replied. They're trying to suffocate it quietly. So what do? We do the opposite. Going loud. By 8:30 a.m. We were no longer thinking about if the truth would come out, only how much of it would. He arranged the meeting, off record, secure, face-to-face. A journalist he trusted, one who didn't scare easily. We met in a borrowed office above a closed print shop. No signage. No names. I placed both flash drives on the table. Everything's here, I said. But if this goes public, there's no pulling it back. The journalist didn't touch them at first. Is this clean? She asked. As clean as it gets, my friend replied. We've cross-verified timestamps, payments, routes, shell companies. And the death? She asked, looking at me. I swallowed. The crash was staged to look unremarkable, I said. But the data proves intent. Timing. Pressure. Cover-up. She finally picked up the drives. If this is real, she said slowly, it doesn't just expose Helios. What else does it do? I asked. It exposes everyone who protected them. The call that changed the rules. At 11:17 a.m., my phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered. This is Deputy Assistant Director Keller, the voice said. We need to speak with you immediately. Federal. My pulse spiked. About what? I asked. About your sister, he said, and about what you're about to release. I looked at my friend. He mouthed, Say nothing. I'm speaking with counsel, I replied carefully. You may want to reconsider, Keller said. There are serious consequences. For who? I interrupted. Me? Or the people who killed her? Silence. Then, quieter. We are not your enemy. Then stop acting like you are, I said. The line disconnected. Point of no return. At noon exactly, the article went live. No names blurred. No soft language. No hedging. Just facts. Data trails. Internal approvals. Shell payments. A timeline that ended with Sarah's crash. Within minutes, the server slowed. By 12:14 p.m., Helios stock began to slide. By 12:30, national outlets picked it up. And by 1:05 p.m., the emergency petition was quietly withdrawn. Reeves texted me one line. They can't seal what the world has already seen. I leaned back in my chair, hand shaking, not from fear now, but from release. For the first time since Sarah died, I felt something loosen in my chest. But I wasn't celebrating, because I knew better. When powerful people lose control quietly, they don't always accept it quietly. The warning. At 4:42 p.m., a message arrived from an unknown number. Just 5 words. You should leave town tonight. I stared at the screen. Then I deleted it. Sarah hadn't waited 6 weeks so I could run. And I wasn't about to start now. Next in Part 7, Helios strikes back, not through courts or contracts, but through someone David never expected. And the cost becomes deeply personal. Part 7. The blow that hit home. I was wrong about one thing. Helios didn't come after me next. They came after someone I loved. I was leaving the print shop when my phone rang. This time, it wasn't an unknown number. It was Emily, Sarah's best friend, the closest thing she'd had to family outside of me. I answered immediately. "David," she said, breathless. They were here. My heart slammed into my ribs. "Who?" "Two men," she whispered. "Said they were investigators. Asked about Sarah. About you. They knew things they shouldn't. Are you safe?" I asked. "Yes," she said. But they weren't looking for answers. I already knew the truth. They were sending a message, I said. There was silence on the line. Then Emily spoke again, her voice shaking. "They told me Sarah didn't die a hero," she said. "They said she died scared, alone, and that I should stop talking before. I end up the same way." My vision blurred with rage. "Did they threaten you directly?" I asked. "Yes," she said softly. "And they left something behind." The photo that changed everything. I drove to Emily's apartment without thinking. She handed me a plain white envelope the moment I walked in. Inside was a photograph. Sarah, taken from a distance, standing outside her apartment, time-stamped, 2 days before her death. She was being watched. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my skin. "They want you scared," my friend said when I showed him the photo later that night. "They want you emotional. That's when people make mistakes." "Well, they miscalculated," I said, "because now this isn't just about evidence." "What is it about now?" he asked. "Accountability," I said, "and consequences." Turning the tables. By morning, we changed strategy. No more reacting. We went on offense. We leaked the photo to the journalist, with context. Surveillance logs. Vehicle IDs pulled from traffic cameras near Sarah's building. Patterns emerged quickly. The same black sedan. The same partial plate. And then, the break. A junior contractor, scared, underpaid, and suddenly very cooperative, confirmed it. "Yes," he said in a recorded statement. "We were told to keep eyes on her. That she was a risk." "Who gave the order?" The journalist asked. He swallowed. "A man named Grant Holloway," he said. "Helios Senior Operations." That name lit a fuse. Within hours, the story exploded. Not just corporate negligence now. Premeditation. The call they didn't expect. At 9:03 p.m., my phone rang again. This time, it was Reeves. "They want to talk," he said. "Not Helios. The state." "About what?" "Protective custody," he replied. "And testimony." I looked at the photo of Sarah on the table. "I'll testify," I said. "Publicly." Reeves exhaled. "I was hoping you'd say that." I hung up and sat in silence. For the first time since the call 6 weeks after her death, I wasn't chasing answers anymore. I was standing in them, and Helios knew it. Next in Part 8, David testifies under oath. But the most devastating revelation doesn't come from him. It comes from someone Helios never believed would speak. Part 8, the witness they never prepared for. The courthouse didn't look dramatic from the outside. No flashing lights. No shouting crowds. Just stone, glass, and the weight of what was about to happen inside. I sat at the witness table, right hand raised, swearing to tell the truth. My voice didn't shake, not because I wasn't afraid, but because fear had already taken everything it could from me. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about Sarah. The prosecutor began calmly, walking the jury through the timeline, her work, her report, the pressure she faced, the sudden accident. When he asked me to describe the last conversation I had with my sister, my chest tightened. She said she was close, I told them, that if anything happened to her, it wouldn't be random. Across the room, Helios' legal team sat stone-faced, confident, too confident. Then the prosecutor said the words no one expected. Your Honor, the state calls its next witness. A door opened at the side of the courtroom, and everything changed. The man who broke the wall. He looked smaller than I imagined. Mid-40s, tired eyes, hands that shook slightly as he took the oath. Grant Holloway, Helios Senior Operations Director, the same man named by the contractor, the same man who had ordered surveillance on my sister. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Helios' lead attorney leaned over, whispering urgently to his team. Too late. Grant's voice was low when he began, but steady. Yes, he said. I approved the monitoring of Sarah Collins. Gasps filled the room. And yes, he continued, I was instructed to ensure her report never reached regulators. The judge leaned forward. By whom? The prosecutor asked. Grant swallowed hard. By Helios Executive Committee, he said, and a federal liaison assigned to oversee transit safety compliance. The room exploded. Shouts. Objections. The judge's gavel slamming again and again. Order. The judge shouted. Grant didn't stop. They told us, he said, louder now, that the risk of exposure outweighed the risk of an incident. That her death would be manageable. My vision blurred. Sarah hadn't just been silenced. She'd been calculated. Why he spoke. When the courtroom finally quieted, the prosecutor asked the question everyone was thinking. Why are you testifying now? Grant's eyes flicked toward Helios' table, then to me. Because they were going to let me take the fall, he said. And because I saw the photo. What photo? The prosecutor asked. The one of her being watched, Grant said. I didn't authorize that. That sent another shockwave through the room. Someone else escalated it, he continued. Someone higher. Helios attorneys were pale now. This wasn't damage control. This was collapse. The moment I knew we'd won. As the court recessed, Grant was escorted out under guard. Before he disappeared, he looked back at me. I'm sorry, he said. It wasn't enough. But it mattered. Outside, reporters surged forward, shouting questions. Microphones. Cameras. Voices overlapping. I didn't stop, because for the first time since Sarah died, I knew something with absolute certainty. They couldn't bury this anymore. Too many people had seen it. Too many people had spoken. And the truth, once sworn under oath, has a way of surviving even the most powerful lies. Next in Part 9, the fallout begins, arrests, resignations, and a final revelation. Sarah hid for one last reason, one that changes David's life forever. Part 9. The secret Sarah never shared. The fallout was immediate. By morning, Helios Transit no longer looked untouchable, it looked cornered. Executives resigned for personal reasons. Government consultants were placed on administrative leave. Subpoenas were issued faster than press releases could keep up. And then came the arrests. Grant Holloway wasn't the last to talk. He was the first. I watched the news from Reeves' office. My hands wrapped around a cup of coffee I hadn't realized I was holding. Sarah's name scrolled across the screen in bold letters. Whistleblower's death sparks federal investigation. For the first time, the world wasn't calling her a victim. They were calling her what she really was. Brave. The final file. That afternoon, Reeves closed the office door and locked it. "There's one more thing," he said. I looked up sharply. "Another problem?" "No," he replied. "Another truth." He pulled a slim folder from his safe. Not labeled. No letterhead. "Your sister instructed me not to release this unless 3 conditions were met." He said, 1. Public testimony. 2. Federal charges filed. And 3. Your consent. My heart started pounding again. "What is it?" I asked. Reeves slid the folder toward me. Something she discovered in the last week of her life. I opened it. Inside was a birth certificate. Not Sarah's. Mine. But the father's name wasn't the one I grew up with. I stared at it, confused, dizzy. "That's not possible," I whispered. Reeves spoke gently. Sarah found irregularities while reviewing shell companies linked to Helios. One of the names matched a sealed adoption record. My breath caught. "She didn't tell me," I said. "She wanted to," Reeves replied. "But she was afraid it would distract you or be used against you." My hands trembled as I flipped the page. A photo paperclipped to the back. A man in a suit, standing beside a government official. The same official named in Grant's testimony. "He's my father." I asked. Reeves nodded. "Biologically." The room felt unreal. Sarah hadn't just been exposing corporate corruption. She'd uncovered a personal connection to power, one that explained why her report had triggered such a violent response. "They didn't just want to silence her," I said slowly. "They wanted to contain a lineage," Reeves said quietly. Why she waited 6 weeks. I finally understood it then. The timing. The delay. Sarah hadn't wanted me to learn all this while I was still broken by grief. She wanted me standing, thinking clearly, strong enough to choose what came next. I closed the folder. "What happens now?" I asked. Reeves met my eyes. "That depends on you." I thought of Sarah's handwriting, her warnings, her faith. "I don't want revenge," I said. "I want accountability." Reeves nodded. "Then there's one last step." "What's that?" He smiled grimly. "You testify again," he said. "This time, about who you are."